Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
All right, Gina, what have we got on tap today?
Got a busy schedule, about 23 appointments today.
Oh, yeah, that is busy. Oh, speaking of appointments, remember tomorrow morning we're recording another episode of the Worry-Free Retirement. The reason I mentioned that, your favorite graphic we're going to cover tomorrow. Want to see it?
I guess.
Oh, you got to see this. There it is.
Oh, I knew it. I hate that graphic.
Why?
It's taxes. Nobody understands them. It's just too much. Please tell me you're going to simplify this for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, nationally recognized retirement specialist and four-time author, Tony Walker.
Taxes. It's a five-letter word that speaks for itself. My definition of taxes is quite simple. It is the legal taxing effect of government entities lawfully taking from us our hard-earned money in hopes that they can do a better job with it than had they allowed us to keep our own money. And while we have dealt in previous shows on ways to avoid something I call the tax bracket creep, today's episode will focus on a simple understanding of the complicated tax rules associated with the four different ways they tax our money. And with the cost of goods and services draining more and more out of our pockets, is it any wonder that Americans are getting fed up with paying their fair share in taxes? Which is why today I thought it would be helpful to go back in time and review a very simple graphic I created to help explain the four ways money is taxed in hopes of helping savers keep more of their hard-earned money instead of just handing it over to Uncle Sam. Well, welcome folks to the Worry-Free Retirement. And yes, I am that little man in a sweater vest tax planning specialist and fiduciary, Tony Walker, and before we get started gaining a better understanding of the four different ways your money will be taxed, let me introduce to you three people who are never taxing on yours truly: America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orander; Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson; and finally, our associate producer, Miss Meek and Mild, Mary Beth Combs. Okay, here's the graphic I used many moons ago as I was my practice to conduct weekly educational seminars on a whole host of topics, including, yes, taxes. Now, the importance of this graphic was not to confuse savers, but rather to point out how confusing taxes can be and why you must have a basic understanding of the four ways money is taxed if you're going to keep more of it for yourselves. In other words, is it better to pay the taxes now or later? And assuming you defer the taxes till later, what will those tax rates in the future be? Higher than today or lower than today? You see, once you get a handle on the four ways money is taxed, you can then move confidently into your retirement and have a better understanding of how much of your assets will be taxed, if any, upon your death. Today, I'm going to slow things down a little bit to do the best I can to simplify the tax law so that you can better understand your chance of keeping more money in your pocket instead of turning it over to Uncle Sam. So you stay tuned. I'm Tony Walker. We'll be right back. Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a pension buyout? Has the company you work for moved, been acquired, or closed its doors forever? And finally, do you have a 401k with a previous employer you'd like to move to safer territory? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k or lump sum pension to Tony Walker Financial. Let's meet in person to discuss your retirement options. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your free, no obligation appointment. Let us help you today. Think you're the only one who hates paying taxes? Think again, as surveys like this one reveal more and more savers are fed up paying more and more in taxes. In fact, this particular survey reveals that 57% of those polled feel as though they are being taxed unfairly. The article reveals out of the frustration that some of these folks are skirting the law. Well, folks, there's no reason to go skirting around the tax laws. All you need is a better understanding of them, which is why some 20 years ago, I created this very catchy graphic to help us, and it's called The 4 Types of Governmental Taxation. So we're talking about the money you earn from your paycheck. We're not talking about all the federal income taxes, state FICA. We're talking about the money that's left over, and where are you going to save that money for retirement? So let's take a look at all 4 of these. We have the after-tax taxable. This would be an example if you go out and you make money, you earn your paycheck, you net that out, and you have $10,000 left over, and you could put it in a CD, mutual funds, of course they have dividends and capital gains, stocks, dividends, and then real estate investment trusts. Hang on, folks, by the way, we're going to do the whiteboard in a minute. I'll go over these in detail, but those are generally the types of assets that would be called after-tax taxable. You've already paid the taxes. Now, all that interest is taxed every year. The second category, probably the most popular, I know it's the most popular because I see this all the time, would be the pre-tax tax deferred. And of course, you see right up front there the 401k plan. That could be a thrift savings account, 403b, doesn't matter. Pre-tax means that you're putting the money in, you get a tax deduction, so to speak, and then down the road, you're going to have to deal with the taxes. In other words, they're tax deferred. Now, the problem with that is, although they're very popular, you have very little flexibility. And the problem we're going to see in the next segment is, depending on the tax brackets, you could actually be costing yourself and your family more in taxes by deferring them. Not good. The next category is called after-tax tax deferred. Now, I do this a lot because I don't have a bunch of IRAs or 401ks on myself. I take the profits from the company, I take my salary, whatever's left over, I'll put those a lot in after-tax, tax-deferred categories. Now, one of those is annuities. I've got a lot of annuities. I think at last glance, me and my wife Susan have 11 annuities because I want to defer that growth to a later time in my retirement down the road. I also have a lot of dividend participating whole life. Notice the cash values are tax-deferred. In fact, I always tell people when I bought this building at 8303 Shelbyville Road, I didn't go to a bank. I borrowed the money tax-free from my cash value, which is tax-deferred, and it gave me a lot of flexibility in the terms of that loan. Of course, capital gains on stock, we'll talk about that, etc. So again, the third category, after tax, tax-deferred. Now, the fourth category, quite frankly, as a planner, I think this is the best category. It's called after-tax, tax-free. Now, why would I like this category so much when I'm doing retirement planning? Well, think about this for a minute, folks. If you know what the taxes are going to be in the future, which in this case would be 0. In other words, if you had the option to pay the tax now, which is a known, right? We know what the taxes are now, the laws as they are, and then defer the money, let it grow, leave it to the kids, whatever you want to do with it, but know in the future that it is completely tax-free. Well, to be quite frank, I'd rather have all my money there. But we can't do that because we have different categories. So when I return, we're going to get the big whiteboard out. This is going to be really good. I've never done this before. I'm going to go through an example of each of these categories and then how that works for savers and how you can get more control over your money and keep more of it in your pocket. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. I'm Tony Walker. We'll get the whiteboard out. I'll be right back.
Now remember, when you roll over your money to us from your 401k, you get a free 15% bonus.
Free money? That sounds too good to be true.
No, there's no catch.
So, what are your fees?
No. Not fee, free.
What do you think?
I think we need a second opinion.
Don't get stuck in the wrong annuity. Get a second opinion from TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Our Tony in the Trenches is a question asked of me the other day from a prospective client who apparently watches the show on a regular basis. It goes something like this. Tony, you constantly say you've met in person with over 15,000 savers, yet you only have 3,000 clients. What happened to the other 12,000 people who did not become clients? Well, let me explain these numbers by showing you a typical week at Tony Walker Financial and the number of people I meet on a regular basis and how I came up with this 15,000 number. So basically, this is a schedule on Monday the 25th. You can see it started at 9 with a mark. That was a delivery. So in that example, that was a delivery of all of his annuities and his game plan after becoming a client. So I probably had at least 4 or 5 appointments right there. So again, folks, it's not that I'm meeting with 15,000 different people. You got to understand we have a lot of meetings with sometimes the same people. The next person that came in was John. That was his 3rd appointment. Trent came in at 10, and it was his first. At 10:30, William is first. Keep scrolling there, Derek. You can see George, that was a client review, current client. I could have met with him 5, 10 times over the years, who knows. And a 2nd appointment, another a second, another a second. We'll just keep going. 2nd, 1st, client review. Keep going all the way to the end of the night just to show people, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. So that was a Monday night. I was here till 8 p.m. meeting with all these people. So the point is, why is all this important to know? Well, the reason I've seen so many people is because I have now so much experience to share with those who are retired or thinking of retirement. I mean, let's think about this, folks. You're getting ready to make one of the biggest decisions you'll ever make in your life. Do you want to meet with somebody that's met with 15,000 people and done this 38 years, works with savers, has a full-time staff, 3 salaried fiduciaries, or you want to roll the dice and just hand your money over to anybody? Well, my suggestion is think twice before you do that. In fact, I'd invite you right now, if you want a free assessment of your situation, just go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or give us a call on the toll-free number. All right. We've got to get to the good stuff. I'm watching time. Aaron's kind of giving the chop sign. So let's walk over to the whiteboard. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those 4 different ways that money is taxed, and we're going to take a look at each one. Now, in this example, we're going to start off with the after-tax taxable. Now, what we have imagined is you've already paid taxes on this money, okay? And you've decided over time or whatever, you've put $100,000 in a mutual fund. Remember, the mutual fund in this category, all the dividends, interest, etc., is going to be taxable. So we're going to imagine, since it's taxable, we got to know your tax bracket. So let's say you're in a federal and state tax bracket of 30%. And this will make sense in just a second. Hang in there with me. And let's say the annual dividends and short-term capital gains on this were right at 3%. So that means on $100,000, it would kick off $3,000. That's why you might be saying, yeah, Tony, I get these things called a 1099. What's that all about? I didn't take any money out, but I had to turn that into my accountant. That's what that was. It was an after-tax account. So those dividends, interest on CDs, same ways, has to be accounted for. Now, I'm going to use red for effect here. Since you're in a 30% bracket, that means you owe to the IRS $900. Now let's stop there a minute. You know what most people do? They don't go to the custodian that created this tax and say, hey, by the way, send me $900 to cover the tax. No, you go turn your 1099 in, the account says, hey, by the way, you owe $900 in taxes, and you say, I don't know where that came from, whatever, so you write a check. Now, you've been told to leave that in there and reinvest it. Well, no wonder the financial institutions tell you that. They don't want you taking any money. So what happens at the end of the year, you feel good, right? Because you paid the tax out of pocket, although you didn't know that, but you've got $103,000. So we start this whole process over. So the beginning of next year, you have $103,000. Remember, you're still in a 30% tax bracket. This time, cheat notes again, it's $3,090. And you say, hey, why did it make more money? Because you're compounding, right? You've been told to compound everything. So now 3% of 103 is not $3,000 in dividends and interest, it's $3,090. You're like, hey, this is great, I'm making money. Well, hold on to your horses there, because what you just did was you increased the taxes. If you take 30% of this number, now your tax liability, in this case your out of pocket, went up to $927, and the list and the beat goes on. So this is what we call an after-tax taxable. Is sometimes it appropriate? Yes, but this probably turns in what's called lost opportunity costs to the worst category of them all. Now, I'm going to magically snap my fingers in the essence of time, and we're going to get that whiteboard clean so I can go to category number 2. Here we go. All right, now we've got a clean slate. Our second category again is pre-tax, tax deferred. Now, that really, in most cases, that involves a 401k. Okay, most of you have 401k plans. That would be pre-tax, tax deferred. So let's see if this is really a good deal or not and what dangers lie ahead for those who participate in this. So let's imagine today you have a 401k worth about $100,000. You're putting in $10K or $10,000 a year. And let's just imagine over 30 years, I'm just coming up with hypothetical stuff, folks. It doesn't really matter. But we're just saying in 30 years, that 401k is looking really good. That thing has grown to $500,000 and you're all excited. And then all of a sudden you hit retirement and you forgot all the while that this is not all your money, that Uncle Sam has a piece of this action here. And you go to take it out and the question is, what are the taxes owed? Now, this is a great question and one that concerns me right now because as we record this show on April 26, 2022, there's a lot of uncertainty about our economy and future taxes. In fact, the government just recently showed their hand when they now mandate that beneficiaries who receive these tax-infested plans, when you die, they used to be able to stretch that tax over their lifetime. Well, no more. They're going to have to pay it in 10 years. So the question is, so if you were in a 30% bracket now, and down the road in the future, you're in a 20% bracket. In its simplest form, this has been tax savings, right? Because you deferred taxes today that you would have owed at 30, and let's say in the future it was only 20. Well, great. You saved some money in taxes. Well, but what if it's the reverse? What if one day you or your children, see, here's the key, you or your children are in a 40% tax bracket? Could that happen? Well, who knows? But I tell you what, with $30 trillion in debt and going higher and nobody figuring out what to do about this debt, I'm concerned that this money is going to be hit hard by the government. So what you could be doing is actually giving up control of your money now and paying taxes later in the future. So this is one of those things, if you say, Tony, I've never thought about this, nobody's ever talking about this, then we need to discuss in person how we can try to deal with this tax issue now rather than you just continually stockpiling more and more money into your 401k plan. Okay, let's go to the third form of taxation. We're going to magically snap my fingers so we can get a clean slate. Here we go. All right, now our third type of taxation of your money, we're referring to as after-tax, tax deferred. Actually, for me, this is probably one of my favorites because I'm in a pretty high tax bracket. I don't know what the future is going to hold, but I'm going to show you how I use annuities. So I've got a lot of annuities, a lot of money in annuities. Between me and my wife, Susan, I think I mentioned we've got 11 different annuities. So to be fair, let's say we have $100,000 already in an annuity. I make money. I'm in a 30% tax bracket. To be fair to our comparison, rather than having $10,000, if I were in a pre-tax, that leaves me only $7,000 net to invest. Because remember, I had to pay taxes first. The money left over goes into the annuity. And let's say in 30 years, I've got whatever it is, $400,000, not $500,000. Because I didn't have as much money to invest. Again, you've got to be fair in these comparisons, so I'm just using examples, okay? So I've got $400,000. Now, what are the taxes owed? Well, I put $7,000 times 30 years, that's $210,000 plus I already had $100,000. So this is called our cost basis, and you need to understand this with after tax. So my cost basis is $310,000. The balance of the annuity is $400,000. That means my gain is $90,000, okay? So you might be saying, well, Tony, that sounds like not a great deal. How are you going to pay that tax? You already paid taxes here. You got to pay taxes there. It depends on the type of annuity, but here's a little secret, something called annuitization, okay? So what I'll do in the future with a lot of these annuities is when I get into true retirement, wherever that is, I don't even know if I will retire, to be honest, I'm enjoying this so much. But if, let's say I do retire and I'm 75 and I need some mailbox money. What I'm going to do is I'm going to crank this thing on, and maybe I tell them to pay me over the next 10 years this mailbox money. The government will allow me to stretch that tax over that period of time, which is a huge savings, and at the same time provides me a guaranteed income. I could do it over my life, over a 10-year period. So after-tax, tax deferred is a wonderful way if you need to put more money in than the limits. You know, if I want to add bunches of money, I can put anything I want. I can get access to it better than a 401k. So to me, in a lot of ways, for the type of work I do, I like the after-tax, tax deferred. Now, finally, the most important, and if in a perfect world, if we could do 100% this way, I would do it. Let's look at our fourth one, which is after-tax, tax-free. Here goes. Okay, to me, now this is coming from the standpoint of a planner. I'm trying to help people plan for the future. And one way you do that is you remove uncertainty about it. If you've got all this uncertainty and tax laws that could change, it makes planning really difficult, especially 10, 20, 30 years down the road. And if you're trying to leave money to your kids and loved ones after you die, it's really difficult if you got tax tumors and everything else buried in all this stuff. But with after-tax, tax-free, it's our last category. Let's go through this example. So the same thing, I'm taxed on the $10,000. Let's say I'm in a 30% bracket. I put my $7,000, $100,000, blah, blah, blah. I have a $400,000, and you say, well, Tony, this isn't looking that good. I mean, the tax-deferred annuity did that. Or maybe my pre-tax 401k would have more than that. Well, remember, future taxes with everything else are uncertain, okay? Not with after-tax, tax-free. In fact, this is what I like from a planning standpoint. Whether it's 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, at death, it doesn't matter. All of the money, that includes what you put in, all of the gain, and at death what happens, every bit of it is tax-free, and I like to use this word, forever. So I don't know about you, if you're sitting there right now and you're trying to plan for your retirement, you're trying to make sure you know exactly how much money you're going to be able to spend after you pull all this money out from all these custodians, and you want something that's certain, well, obviously this category, after tax, tax-free, is, as Shannon Ross in her office likes to say, a true humdinger. So you're sitting there maybe saying, well, Tony, I don't know what to do now, man. This is kind of confusing. Can we meet or talk about my specific situation to see which one might be best for me? Absolutely. And best of all, it's absolutely free. So right now, why don't you do this? Why don't you run over to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, click on that Let's Get Started button. Your information will be confidentially sent to our offices, and we can arrange what we call a free 10-minute fiduciary phone call to see if we can be of help to you. And if possible, if we can help, we'll be happy to meet with you in person at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or call the toll-free number on your screen. Well, what does the Bible have to say about taxes, and not only having to pay the tax, but where are we going to get the money to pay it? Some really interesting verses of Scripture coming up. There it is. I got to get my cup of coffee. You stay tuned. I'll be right back.
Now remember folks, when you roll over your 401k with us, you get a 15% bonus. How's that sound?
That sounds too good to be true.
Come on, don't you trust me?
What are your fees?
That is a great question, and we'll get to that after we roll over the 401k.
I think we need to get a second opinion.
Don't get stuck in the wrong annuity. Get a second opinion from TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Ever been reading the Bible when all of a sudden you run smack dab into a verse of Scripture that you are certain you have read before but never before understood its true meaning? Several weeks ago, in preparation for this show on taxes, I stumbled across this interesting exchange found in Matthew 17:24 through 27, where the local tax collectors confront Peter to be sure that Jesus is paying his fair share in taxes. After Peter quickly responds to the tax collectors the affirmative, he then scurries back to Jesus for some guidance on the matter, to which Jesus asked Peter the following: of whom are these taxes required? The sons of kings or complete strangers? Apparently, Peter rightly replies, the sons are exempt from taxes, but the strangers are not. Yet even though Jesus knows as the Son of God he is exempt from taxes, he does not wish to offend the government officials God has appointed over him. So, what does Jesus do? He tells Peter they need to pay the taxes anyway. But where are these two supposed to get the money from to pay the tax? One is a lowly carpenter, the other a poor fisherman. About the only thing they have in common is that they're both broke. Well, slide on down to verse 27, where Jesus instructs Peter to run down to the local pay lake, cast a hook in it, and the first fish Peter lands reach into its mouth and pull out the money needed to pay the tax. Sounds far-fetched, doesn't it? Or more than it appears, at least. Well, actually, it's not far-fetched at all. You see, no matter what the need might be, yes, even for the need to come up with the money to pay your taxes, God will provide what you need. It only makes sense, right? I mean, why wouldn't the same God with the ability to create the universe not provide for the basic needs of his own children. The problem is we quickly forget this, especially when tax time rolls around. And therein lies the problem. We let the seizure of our property rob our joy and thus forget that the true joy is not found in the money, but found in the source of it. So to help us maintain our joy and not let others rob us of it, I came up with 4 things we can do to maintain our joy during our brief stay here on earth, and here they go. Number 1, rejoice in the fact that God has already provided you and I the ability to earn a living and make money. If it weren't for Him and the health He provides us, we wouldn't be able to work and earn a living, right? So owing taxes simply means we're making money, which is a good thing. Number 2, rejoice in the fact that the government officials God has put in charge of taking our money are appointed by God, and as Jesus instructs us, we are not to offend them, but to simply rejoice and pay our fair share. Number 3, rejoice in the fact that even though we owe taxes, the same God who provided the ability to work and make money will also provide us the money needed to pay them. Don't believe me? Go back and read verse 27 again. And finally, rejoice in the fact that in the end, and sooner than you think, we will leave this home here on earth and return to our true home in heaven, where one day we won't care about this stuff that we've left behind. So quit letting taxes rob your joy and instead look to them as a reminder that only true lasting joy is found in God, not the money. Amen? Well, you're supposed to sit there and say with this newfound knowledge of the 4 ways of taxes, Tony, is there anything really legally I can do to quit paying all this money in taxes? And that's where we at Tony Walker Financial come into the picture. We are not money managers. We are not stockbrokers, and we're certainly not annuity peddlers. We are retirement planning specialists, and as such, part of our work involves understanding not just the taxes that can erode your wealth, but other costs that will too. Things like high fees, taking too much investment risk, and worse yet, waiting too long to use and enjoy the money you've worked so hard to save. So if you don't have a trained local retirement planning firm in your corner, why not? Let me invite you to take action, get a plan in place, so if you're over the age of 50, a saver, and have at least $50,000 to invest, we need to talk. You can contact us in one of 2 ways. First, by simply logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and clicking on the Let's Get Started button. Or you can simply call the toll-free number on your screen to set up your free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. And during this call, we will quickly determine if we can be of help, and if so, we can arrange a free, no-cost in-person appointment at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. So again, TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call the toll-free number on your screen. Well, that's all the time we have today. Next week, we've got an interesting show planned, and it deals with one of the most important financial creations ever. But you'll have to tune in next week to find out what that is. In the meantime, though, you remember, if all else fails, you be worry-free. Make it a good one.